A few days ago, I got chatting to an elderly gentleman on the train. I was going to a scout event, so I was wearing my top and my necker. And he just came over and started reminiscing about his time in scouting. And he was saying his grandson's in scouts at the moment, and he's seen a massive change than when he was a scout. He was telling me that he would be doing manly things, becoming a man in his scout troop, and learning about boxing and doing lots of things outdoors. Whereas his grandson does a lot of stuff inside the scout hall. And it got me thinking, would BP recognize the way the scouts are now when he founded it all those years ago? And what would Baden-Powell think of the modern day badges? Would he recognize them and think, yes, this is really good. This is what I wanted the movement to go through. And the chap was talking about one of his random badges that his grandson's doing is the entertainer badge. What's that got to do with scouting? It's irrelevant. And I kind of got thinking about it and chatting to him and said, actually, Baden-Powell was a big entertainer. He loved dressing up. He loved putting shows on and pantomimes and stuff. So the entertainer badge, BP would have gone spot on. He was also talking about that they quite often go off out and about into the park, into their outside space, and the leader is a bit of an arts and crafts scout leader. So they do lots of drawings and pictures and stuff, and they would go off to their campsite. And while camping, they would take some time out and the scouts would draw, would sketch maybe the tents or some scouts playing or nature and stuff. And he was like, well, what's that all about? And I reminded this chap on the train that PP loved to sketch. He was a cartoonist. There's books, there's pictures, even in some national posters about the war. So I kind of reminded this gentleman that BP would have loved the creative badge. I asked this chap, so, all right, you suggest those fun badges that you did as a scout. And he was telling me that he used to do the Fireman's Badge. One of the things he remembers, I don't know if this was true. I was trying to do a bit of research, but I'm just taking his word. He was telling me he remembers he climbed up about 10 foot. That's high. And then part of the badge was they had to dive off, and the scouts would catch them in a blanket or some sort of net, so they were kind of recreating a fire at home. That would never happen now. Can you imagine? Risk assessments, health and safety. Whether that was true, I don't know, and I can't find any details that says it. They do talk about a fireman's badge and rescuing from the house, but 10 foot high? I did confirm that we do still have a fire badge called the fire safety badge. Okay, the scouts don't jump outside a burning window to be rescued by the rest of their patrol hoarding a sheep, but we do go to maybe the fire station and we learn about fire safety, how to be safe at home, around the campsite, learning about fire extinguishers. While you hear that playing, it reminds me, we got chatting about air spotter badge, and he remembers, sitting outside and looking at planes and stuff. I said, actually, you can do a badge about air spotting. You can actually go to Heathrow Airport and they do run a session for you. Just reminded me about when the plane went over. I forgot that memory talking to him. He also told me he went to summer camp in some random farm in Essex, and they did a blacksmith course with the farmer on the, there'd be a blacksmith on the farm, should I say. And he remembers making a horseshoe. Okay, we don't have a blacksmith course as such, but you can do those courses. There are blacksmiths. I know there's one down the road, not far from me in Twickenham, that you can take your scouts to, and they can make a something. Don't know what that something is. I haven't looked into that. But what badge would that be now? If there was some sort of blacksmith making something, I guess that could be the craft badge, where part of the badge is to make something, isn't it? He also was reminiscing that on part of that scout camp at the farm, they did the poultry farm badge, and that was to go and get a chicken, kill it humanely, pluck it, prepare it, and then cook it for dinner. So he said, do you still do that in scouts? And I said, well, there's not an actual poultry badge, but part of the survival badge is, catching your own fish on a fishing line and then prepping that, cooking that for dinner. Maybe you cook it on a campfire, panace it. Is that a word, panace? Have I made it up? Sure that is, when you get the spears, the skewers. And I do know my friends at Bush Scout, we teach leaders how to prep pigeons, how to pluck it, gut it, clean it, fry it up into a nice stir fry. And that's part of the badge. So you could do that survival badge, or even part of the chef badge. So there's not an exact poultry badge, but there's that badge that we could do. Unfortunately, the train ride came to an end. He had to jump off at his station, and I was getting off that same spot, and we said, thank you very much. Lovely to chat, lovely to meet you. Shook left hands, and off we went to our different locations. Wherever he went in London, I went that way, and he went that way. Lovely chat, and it was nice to talk to a former scouter about his memories and watching his grandsons go through the movement. Whilst I was queuing up for a coffee, just after chatting to the gentleman, it got me thinking, in the future, when maybe I'm a grandfather, or my son is talking about his time to his child in scouting, what the badges we're going to look back right now and think, well, that's a bit random. What are those badges that we'll just have to try and explain the meaning of it? I think coding is going to become just second nature, you know, the way the world is going with technology and stuff like that. But what are the badges that we do now that we'll be thinking, hey, Laurel Hardy moment, hey? Doesn't make sense. So Scout Leaders, comment below, tell me what badges we currently do right now, whether that's squirrels, beavers, cubs, scouts, explorers, that we'll look back in 50 years time or whatever and think, why? So Scout Leaders, thank you very much for watching this vlog, and it was great to chat to this gentleman and reminisce. Maybe you should start speaking to your parents who drop you off, grandparents who pick up their grandchildren at beavers or whatever. Get talking to them. It's just great to reminisce and think, actually, maybe we could recreate that. I don't know. Anyway, see you next time here on Big Man of the Woods. Whatever you're doing, Scout Leaders, stay safe and happy camping.